All right, we're still in this $113,000 level, hovering between $112,000 and $113,000 level on Bitcoin. On altcoins, the altcoins are bleeding, but I'm actually going to show you why I think Bitcoin's actually due for a big move up. It may not happen in the next few days, but there's a massive move up that's actually due on Bitcoin. And there is a massive move due on Bitcoin, and it may be up or down. I think it's going to be up, and I'll show you exactly why I say that. I also want to talk today about the new narrative, the new meta. And right now, the new hot narrative is actually perp dexes, and specifically Aster. And a lot of people are saying, well, you know, the Aster trade is finished now. It's trading at $2.27 or $2.30, and the Aster trade is finished. I'm going to show you that this trade is not finished. And I believe that this trade can at least double from here to maybe $5 and maybe even $5.40 or $5.50. And I'm going to show you exactly the road to get there. What I'm also going to show you is I'm going to show you how the market is starting to respond to narratives. It's the first time in the cycle that the market is actually starting to respond to narratives. And it's exciting because when the market responds to narratives, there's lots of money to be made if you have a framework. And I'm going to show you a framework of how to trade those narratives. So, big show today. Let's get the show on the road, guys. I'm just going to leave this here. GM from Sam Bankman-Fried, guys. I don't know if you guys saw this tweet. It's crazy. So two things are going on here. I mean, or one of two things is going on here. Either this man has a phone in jail and he really misses the outside world and he really misses the power that he used to have when he was in crypto. And when he finally got a phone inside the prison cell, he sent GM. But then when he realized what the hell he had done, getting 17,000 likes, he says, no, SBF is not posting himself from prison. I'm a friend posting on his behalf, because he probably wants to get out of prison as quickly as possible. And if you get caught with a phone in prison, I guess you're going to get stuck there for a long time. So anyway, GM from me and GM from Sam Bankman-Fried in prison, or not in prison, or in prison with a phone. Who knows? Guys, big show today, because I really believe that while everyone's abandoning this Aster trade, I think it's going to $5, $5.50. I'm going to show you exactly how it gets there. A lot of people are going to be skeptical about it, but it does say that there's another 2.5x from here on that trade, which people believe is crowded. Also, I'm going to show you why Bitcoin's next move is going to be quite big, very big. I hope it's going to be on the way up, but it can actually be on the way down. So we've got to look at both scenarios here. So yeah, without further ado, I must say, like, it's quite sad in this office. We're actually moving offices for the first time. Well, after 3 years of being in this office, we finally moving offices to new office. It's like quiet here. It's like quite dead here. It's like everything's gone. The walls are being painted. It's like the end of an era. But we're moving into an amazing office. I can't wait to show you guys that office. Anyway, listen, guys, you need to smash a like. I need to bring the alpha. That's the deal. Smart contract. You bring likes, I bring alpha. We put that smart contract on Solana. We don't put it on Ethereum, because if we did, it would only execute after the show was finished. So we're going to put that smart contract on Solana. It's going to execute very fast. Let's go. Let's talk about this move on Bitcoin. So here's where we're at, right? Bitcoin price is in this, like, it's struggling. It's struggling in this, I'm not going to say correction territory, because we may be in correction territory, but we're not firmly in correction territory. The altcoins are bleeding though. So if you look at the altcoins on the 1 week, the majority of the altcoins are basically bleeding. If you pop that Aster thing, the majority of the altcoins are actually bleeding. And what you're starting to see is the short-term holders starting to capitulate. Now that's a good sign that the capitulation is starting to happen. It does further strengthen my narrative that we could get to 100 to 105,000 on Bitcoin before we land up going back up, because the short-term holders are starting to capitulate. Why are they capitulating? They're capitulating primarily because of the altcoin market. The difference for Bitcoin between being at like 120 and 107, it's like 8%, 10%, whatever that number is. But for the altcoins have gone up a lot. And with that, you're getting the short-term holders, which are actually starting to get scared and to get wiped. Now, there's a big move that's actually due on Bitcoin. And it can be up and it can be down. And what's telling me that there could be a big move is an indicator that I actually really trust. And that's the Bollinger Band indicator, right? If you take the Bollinger Band indicator and you put the Bollinger Band indicator on the weekly, so on the daily, you don't really see this time frame, right? on the daily, there's not such a big move that's actually supposed to happen. But if you go on the weekly, on the higher time frame, what this indicator is basically saying to us is it's saying to us that the Bollinger Bands have never been this compressed. What that means is that Bitcoin has been in a certain range for a certain number of weeks. That's such a wide number of weeks that we have never, ever, ever been this low on the Bollinger Bands. And what that means is that effectively a move is imminent. Now, there can be two kinds of moves. The first move could be a move down so that we actually get a real correction in the cycle, because this is not a correction. This is like a tiny, tiny, tiny cool off. And we haven't had a real correction for quite a long time. Like if you think about like corrections, we haven't had a 30%, 20% Bitcoin correction for quite a while. So the one way that this may go is that we actually kiss that 90,000 or 95,000 that I spoke about the other day. The other side of that coin is that this move is actually a catch-up move with gold. So what we know is that Bitcoin and gold actually should move together. Gold is at all-time highs. Bitcoin's not at all-time highs. Now, that can stay disconnected for short periods of time. But in long periods of time, that trade is going to catch up. And either gold's going to top or Bitcoin's going to do the catch-up trade, which it usually does, right? If you look at this quote from Quinton, he says, gold always runs first. 100 days after that, Bitcoin starts massively outperforming it. It's literally that simple. Now let's look at when gold actually started its monstrous move. You can say that it started the monstrous move sometime around 20th of August, right? That was from 3.3 to 3.7. Now let's go 100 days from 20th of August. So 20th of August, 20th of September, 20th of October, 20th of November. So this would say that we would get like this monster move towards the end of November. And that would, potentially, if you think about, if you're still buying into that 4-year cycle bullshit, then that would take you to the end of the cycle. I don't know if it's the end of the cycle, not the end of the cycle. Who gives a shit? Right now we're making money, and that's really all that matters. And yeah, speaking of making money, we are making a ton of cash. And the reason why we are making a ton of cash, even in this bad market, is because we've caught on to what's going on in this market. And what's going on in this market is what I call narrative hopping. We're finally getting into, it's the first time in this cycle that we've got the market in this narrative hopping paradigm, right? In the last cycle, we had it all the time. I used to call it the bees. I don't know if you remember our friends, the bees, and how they used to fly from narrative to narrative, flower to flower. And they used to suck the profits out of the pollen, the profits out of all the narrative. And then they'd used to move on to the next narrative and the next narrative and the next narrative. We're starting to get that kind of bull market mentality in this market, right? We first had the pump fun narrative, which was the meme coin launchpad narrative. I don't know if you remember that. And that was like the bonk pump narrative. Then we got the pump fun streaming narrative, and everything was about bonk and pump and streaming and whatever else. Then we got the CZ is back narrative, right? You remember that CZ is back narrative, which happened last week. And then now you've got this new narrative, which is perps dexes. Because of Aster, we've got this perps dex narrative. For what we're starting to see now is we're starting to see that the bees are coming back and they're hopping from narrative to narrative to narrative. And if you know how to catch these narratives, you'll end up making a lot of money, right? I'll show you one example. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did say it on the show as well. But specifically, I said it in front runners. I said, guys, look, I'm not buying anything right now, but the two things that I am buying are narrative trades. The two narrative trades that I landed up buying was, I landed up buying Hemi at 57 cents. Here's the post over here. I made it in front runners, and I bought Black Hole Dex at 34 cents. Now, why did I buy Hemi? It's a Bitcoin L2, but also because CZ's an investor, and we had that whole BNB CZ's back narrative. So now let's fast forward. Where are we today? This was a post that was done on the 20th of September, which is exactly 4 days ago. 4 days. Where are we today on Hemi? Hemi is at $1.90. That is, you've almost made a 4x. Oh, you've definitely made a 3x, but you've almost made a 4x on Hemi. Okay, I literally told you guys on the show, and I told you guys in front runners many times that this was about to happen, right? It was basic narrative. It was a basic narrative situation. And those that caught it, I believe, made tons and tons of cash. If you look at, there's a channel here, which is called Bragging Rights. And if you look at the amount of money that people made on Hemi, I mean, Just have a look at the amount of money that people in the community landed up making on Aster, on Hemi. Just here it is. Here's a guy, $203,000 up on a 3x long in frontrunner, 724% in frontrunners. Guys, I don't know how to beg you anymore. Please join frontrunners. We have hit 100% of our trades in the last couple of weeks. We have made life-changing money in the last couple of weeks. You have an opportunity to join this for you can join it, and if you don't like it after 1 month, it was free. Your whole month was basically free. You just send us a mail and we cancel your subscription and you get your money back, and that's the end of the game. Here is living proof of how much money is actually made in this thing. And yeah, I don't want to spend too much more time on it. I do want to highlight though that right now the market is very, very, very much in narrative chasing territory, and we have started to work out a framework for how the market actually does this, right? The researchers actually put together a framework for how to catch the right narratives, right? So it's a 7-step framework, and I'm going to drop a show on the other channel, on Crypto Insider, to explain this narrative in much, much, much more detail. But there's a 7-step narrative. First, it starts off with a few groups talking about it. Then slowly the momentum builds. Then it becomes a primary trend. Once it's a primary trend, what you get is you get the first cracks, the first bit of bad news, the first bit of this, on Pump Fund, it was the first bad streams. Then you get the final hype wave, and then you get the peak and the blow off top. And generally a narrative chart starts looking like this. And we've had these narrative charts now, we've had 3 in a row. We've had Bonk, we've had meme coin wars, we've had Pump Fund streaming, and now we're in the third one of these in a row, which is, we also had DATs. Now we're in one which is a very big one, which is the narrative around perpetuals dexes. And there's a good reason why this is a big narrative, right? Because this is probably Sunny SA. He knows. Sunny, happy Heritage Day, bros. He says like and subscribe. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. Today's South African Heritage Day. We do South African things. Yeah, on Heritage Day. Who's this clown in the chat that's pumping cancer? Can we ban this guy? Such a bad narrative to come in here. Come on, get Ninja Solana. Let's get Ninja Solana out of the chat also. Ninja Solana out, block them forever, never come back. That other guy, block him forever, never come back. Yeah, ban them all. Ban them all, and basically just don't let them back in here. Put the lifetime ban button on. All right, let's go. Ninja Solana, get the guy out of here. Raymond wants to join Frontrunners. Raymond, go and join Frontrunners. It'll be the best decision that you actually make. So let's talk about this narrative. This narrative is a big narrative. The reason why it's a big narrative is because if you think of the majority of the money in crypto, the majority of the money is actually made in perpetuals, right? Binance, Bybit, Bitget, Blowfin, where do they all make their money? Where do all these exchanges actually land up making all their money? They make their money out of derivatives, right? It's the biggest pie in crypto at the moment. And so right now, as CZ says everyone wants to be a decentralized perpetuals DEX. And he's pretty right in saying that the more attention that we put on this narrative, the more money will go onto this narrative. And that's exactly what's happening right now. We're getting an explosion because they all want to eat into the Binance market share. We're getting this explosion of perpetuals dexes. And you can see it, like Orderly Network, which is a token that's been out for a long time. They actually pumped last week, or you can see they pumped from like 60 cents or 70 cents all the way up to $3.60 or $3.70. Why did they pump? Because what they launched was a no-code Perps DEX launcher. What does that mean? It means that anybody, even you, can launch your own perpetuals DEX using their unified liquidity and using their software. Then you got Drift. Now Drift also started to pump. Then you had AVNT, which by the way we called in Frontrunners again. We called it in Frontrunners. Researchers, just show me the first post of where we called it. I don't want to say it was wrong, but I think it was around like 60 cents, maybe 70 cents. The other one that started pumping is this MYX, which is this 𝗙𝗏 token with the Perps DEX. And so right now the narrative is around Perps DEXs, the biggest prize in the crypto market, right? I guess when you look at these when you look at these perps dexes, the two that are really worth talking about now. I mean, there are many. There's Drift, and I think Drift is probably one of the good ones, and a whole lot of others. But the two that are right now battling this whole thing out are definitely Hyperliquid and Aster, right? Hyperliquid was, I would say, this cycle's darling token or darling platform. It was the first perpetuals DEX that was, in inverted commas, decentralized. Why I say in inverted commas that it was decentralized is because it's a decentralized DEX and it's a non-custodial DEX because you never deposit your money into the DEX, but the validators are all in one place, and there's very few validators. So it's not the most decentralized thing that I've ever seen in my life. So Hyperliquid was definitely the cycle champion, right? And as you can see here, you can see like that Hyperliquid was very, very, very much like pretty much led the entire cycle, with Drift, you could say, as a second one. But now all of a sudden you had the launch of Aster, right? And Aster is what caused this whole narrative to resurface. And so now you've got these two going basically head to head. You've got Hyperliquid, which is at a fully diluted valuation of $45 billion. And you've got Aster, which is a newly launched competitor, which is at a fully diluted valuation of $18.52 billion. And these two are basically battling it out to become the ultimate decentralized perpetuals DEX, and to ultimately to attract the majority of the trading fees and everything else that comes with being there. Now, you could say, look, you cannot compare Aster with Hyperliquid because Aster is a DEX, a perpetuals DEX, and Hyperliquid is actually a chain with a DEX. Well, the founder of Aster came out and he basically said,
we are going to roll out our own blockchain L1 as well. It's in the process of we're internal testing it, but the way that we design it, we want to preserve trade privacy while providing trade verifiability. So you can verify.
So they both are effectively going to be blockchains with killer products on the blockchain, which is this decentralized perps DEX. Now, as I mentioned to you, up until now, Hyperliquid really has had the lion's share. Drift has come in at certain points in time, and then EdgeX has come in, and we'll talk about EdgeX in a second as one of the players here. Everything changed though when CZ, in inverted commas, endorsed Aster, and that led to speculation that he was actually that he was actually behind Aster. Now, I think everyone now knows, based on the amount of bull posting that CZ's done around this DEX, that he's somehow involved. I guess he's not the founder, and I don't think he's the founder of any project now except this 𝗙𝗍𝗄𝗏 Academy, which is his new venture. He says, look, someone says here, perps DEX, blah, blah, blah. 𝗙𝗍𝗄𝗏 says, no, definitely not. Credit has to go to Hyperliquid. I don't even run a perps DEX product. I just shitpost. So he's confirming he's not actually the founder, but we do know that he's very, 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 very involved here. And we also know from interviews that he's done before that he believes that there are certain flaws in the perps DEX, the current Hyperliquid perps DEX model, and that he's very, very, very keen to get involved or to back teams or to invest, not only because of the flaws, but also because they're looking for things that disrupt their own business, right?
Yeah. There's so much more to do. I think the current model where everything's fully transparent may or may not be the best model, because you can see a big whale putting a $300 million short, but the guy who really want to do 300 million short don't want you to see it, right? So the guys who are putting that there,
there's a game. There's for sure a game, right?
It's for his effect. Whereas real large traders like institutions, that's why traditionally dark pools are way bigger than what we call order books. So I think there's a lot of room to grow, but I do think that future is decentralized. In the future, DEX is going to be bigger than CEX, and we want to invest heavily in those areas. Yeah, we want to invest in the things that will disrupt our business.
Are you already in the process of doing that?
Oh yeah, we invested in multiple DEX. Yeah. There's so much more.
So this could be one of those DEXs. One of many DEXs that he's actually invested in to make sure that whilst the top spot of whilst the decentralized perpetuals DEX model digs into the Binance profit share, these guys are actually hedged against that, and that they've got some kind of investment against that. So let's talk about how or why Aster can actually double from here in terms of price. When you look at the price of Hyperliquid, you say, okay, the price of Hyperliquid right now around $48 or whatever that number is, $45, and the fully diluted valuation is about $45 billion. If you look at Aster, the fully diluted valuation is about $18.6 billion. Now, I think everyone knows that there's no way that you can compare Aster and Hyperliquid in terms of users and in terms of traction and in terms of time in the market. I mean, Hyperliquid by far are the most tested DEX. They've got the most players actually trading on their DEX. They've got the most volume by a country mile in terms of DEX, and they've got the most sustainability. However, what we can see is that Aster is actually stealing some market share from them. If you look at this specific week, I think these are in weeks, yeah, it's weeks. If you look at this specific week, what you can see on this specific week is that Aster actually has 34.4% of the volume, where Hyperliquid only has 23.14% of the volume in this week. Also, what you're getting is 𝗙𝗍 actually making it clear that Binance is going to support this DEX. He says Aster is not a BNB chain exclusive DEX. Yes, we know about that. He says Binance level liquidity on Aster, which means that they're probably tapping into Binance's liquidity on Aster. And then he says here, exclusively on Binance Wallet, extra 10% on Aster DEX trading. So what you can see is that Binance is starting to push their users to actually start using this DEX. The other thing that we have going on here is there's one feature that Aster has that Hyperliquid doesn't have. And that's the feature that 𝗙𝗍 was talking about in that interview. That feature is what they call dark pools, or effectively when they say, when you want to put in orders and you want to put in trades, but you don't want everybody else to know what your orders and what your trades are. Remember that period where 𝗏𝗏𝗏 kept trading and he kept getting liquidated. And the reason why he kept getting liquidated is because everybody knew that his positions were open. Everybody basically said, okay, we're going to hunt his position and we're going to liquidate him, right? And the only way to avoid that, and 𝗙𝗍 actually came out and said it back in the time, at the time, he said, look, you can't have these big positions publicized, because as soon as you publicize these big positions, there's an incentive for everyone to go after you in those big positions. And the only way to do that is to launch these things called dark pools. Now, what effectively is a dark pool? A dark pool is an order or a trade or a position that you can't actually see on chain. And that's what you call dark pools. And that's the big advantage that Aster, or the few big advantages that Aster has. The first big advantage that it has is it's got these dark pools, which allow for preserving privacy on DEXs. The second thing is that it clearly has access to 𝗙𝗍 and the Binance exchange. And it looks like 𝗙𝗍 and them are positioning this in such a way that they're channeling the Binance user base to this thing. And that's something that Hyperliquid doesn't have. So how does Aster, with a 1 week track record or 2 week track record, how does it from a price point of view or from a narrative point of view actually catch up to Hyperliquid? Now look, I do know that this trade is crowded, and I know that a lot of people have started to take profits, but I remember people saying that they have been taking profits since 90 cents and 80 cents and $1 when it nearly went past $1. I know a lot of people that actually took profits on Aster and said, look, this Aster trade is crowded and it's time to get out. And those people right now missed out on about 150% upside. Why? Because for as long as there is a relative valuation, for as long as Hyperliquid has a market cap of, say, $45 billion or whatever the number is, then everyone will always justify, up until you get to the point, everyone will always justify why Aster should trade the same as Hyperliquid. They may say, look, it doesn't have as many users, doesn't have as many volume, but then they'll turn to the volume and say, but look, guys, it's gaining volume now. Just look at the last week's volume. Actually, Aster got more volume. Hyperliquid has this and Hyperliquid has that. Yes, but Aster has 𝗙𝗍. And so for as long as there is a price anchor or a price valuation that you can put together where you compare the one against the other, where you compare Hyperliquid against Aster, and you can compare the one against the other. It makes sense that these two would actually tend into some kind of parity. It's not the first time that we've seen this in crypto. Do you remember a few weeks ago when Bonk started to battle Pump on the in the meme coin wars? It was during this period over here. Remember, Pump had the market, the lion's share of the market when it came to meme coin launchpads, and then all of a sudden, what you saw Bonk starting to take over and start getting the lion's share of the meme coin launches. Now, what happened to the market cap of Bonk and the market cap of Pump during that time? So Bonk actually pumped. Now let's go look at Bonk and let's actually get a market cap. So I think that'll actually be quite good for us. Yeah. So you go to Bonk and let's just set it to market cap. So you can look over here. Not price, you set it to market cap. And let's go back about a year. Look at the peak of where Bonk actually got to. Bonk got to, Bonk got to about it's a $3 billion market cap, which on a fully diluted basis is about 25% more than that, which is a $4 billion market cap, right? Because this is showing you market cap, not fully diluted valuation, right? So you got Bonk going to $4 billion. What was $4 billion? $4 billion was also the valuation that Pump Fund launched at in its when Pump Fund actually launched. And so what you can see is that when you have two tokens in a narrative that are actually battling, they will battle until such time as the one's market cap equals the other market cap. Now, for that to happen here, you're going to get Aster going up from where it is now all the way up to $5.40 or something along those lines until it has a fully diluted valuation, which is about $45 billion, right? You can see it in this spreadsheet over here, right? If you take the FDV of Aster, it is about $18 billion. And if you take the FDV of Hyperliquid, it's about $43.5 billion. That gives you a 42%, Aster is valued at 42% of Hyperliquid's valuation, which means that there's a potential 2.4x upside from here if the two were to trade into parity. If we got a repeat of the Bonk Pump thing, and if human psychology kicked in and they found a whole lot of reasons, because eventually what they'll do is they'll just exhaust the reasons. They'll come up with more and more and more reasons why Aster should be valued at the same as Hyperliquid. And then what happens is that the real battle actually takes place. So what we're getting now is we're getting the first part of the battle. The first part of the battle is you don't actually have to do anything. You don't have to show anything. There's a new competitor that's launched into the market. The competitor is showing a certain amount of traction. And therefore, people are starting to justify why this competitor is such a good competitor that it should be valued at the same valuation as the market leader in the space. That's where we're at the moment. When you get to that level, that's when the real battle actually starts. And that's when the true winner actually starts to emerge. When we had this with Bonk and Pump, that was when I took a short on Bonk and I took a long on Pump. And what I said was, hold on a second, guys. This Bonk thing is too much hot air for me. The experts in meme coin launches are actually Pump Fund. And that's when I went short Bonk, long Pump. And it was one of the biggest trades of my life, right? The time to do that is when the two actually hit par over here. And so right now, what I'm waiting for is Aster to go all the way to the valuation of Hyperliquid. And then we're going to see the real battles the real battle actually emerge. Now, a lot of people will say, well, there's no way that Hyperliquid can actually, that hype can actually beat Binance. Like, this is Binance, they've got the Binance user base, they've got the BSC chain users. There's no way that Hyperliquid's actually going to be able to withstand this kind of attack. But guys, this is not the first time this has happened. In fact, if you go back to I don't remember exactly when it was 2021. That's when Binance actually launched PancakeSwap, right? And what you started seeing in 2021 and 2022 is that PancakeSwap flipped Uniswap in TVL, right? So you started getting all this hype around, you see PancakeSwap was the biggest users, et cetera, et cetera. Exactly the same hype cycle. And now let's look at where PancakeSwap is and where Uniswap are. So remember, at one stage in that cycle, PancakeSwap was the blue, all of a sudden taking over. It was exactly the same thing. And you can see that PancakeSwap started to eclipse, this is by the way, PancakeSwap started to eclipse Uniswap. And everyone said, okay, it's over for Uniswap. PancakeSwap's going to be the new thing. And if we look at it today, PancakeSwap has a 2 billion FDV. And Uniswap, I think, has a 7 or 8 billion FDV. I don't remember. I haven't checked it for quite a while. Has a 8 billion FDV. So it's not a sure thing that just because Binance is behind it and BSC is behind it, that it's actually going to win. In fact, ultimately, these exchanges don't actually land up winning in other verticals. They only land up winning in their own vertical. So with all of that in mind, the question then becomes, okay, well, how are you playing this? So the truth is, I've got money on both positions. I've got money on Hyperliquid and I've got money on Aster. I've got a lot more money on Hyperliquid, but that's just merely a function of the fact that I invested in Hyperliquid early and it really started going up. I actually worked it out today and I realized that if Aster reaches the same market valuation as Hyperliquid, then my two positions would actually be equal to one another. So right now, at this stage of a cycle, the prudent thing to do is to have chips on both horses. You don't need to back one horse at the moment. It's very early in the race. Both of them have a good chance of winning. I really like the dark pools that Aster's got. I know that Aster's got access to the Binance clients and client book and whatever else. But at the same time, Hyperliquid, and they're an amazing team that's built an amazing product with amazing traction, right? And I don't think that we can call a winner yet. And so what I've done is I've put money on both. And what I'm doing is I'm actually backing the sector. I'm saying I'm backing all these perpetuals dexes. So it's not only about Hyperliquid or a thing. I know that this is the biggest prize in crypto. The same way that you would have made money if you backed KuCoin and Binance and all the exchanges. It is the same way that you should probably be backing all the decentralized exchanges. And to be honest, I've brought you guys a couple of other opportunities. Like you can get free airdrop tokens in these token opportunities. And I'm not talking to airdrop tokens from small players. I mean, just have a look at this over here, right? If you look at the third biggest player here, the third biggest player actually is 𝗏𝗏𝗃, right? See 𝗏𝗏𝗃 over here? 𝗏𝗏𝗃 is actually the third biggest player. Now, I've guaranteed you that these guys are going to have an airdrop between now and the end of the year. So if you go and use this link and you go and start trading on 𝗏𝗏𝗃, they are having a airdrop this year, right? And then again, they're not a small perpetuals exchange. They're quite a big one. So the airdrop would actually land up being successful. Same thing with 𝗏𝗏𝗪. This is 𝗏𝗏𝗪's version of Hyperliquid. This is the same as Binance have got Aster. This is 𝗏𝗏𝗪, except this is officially 𝗏𝗏𝗪's one. And again, they're going to have an airdrop before the end of the year. Remember that the majority of the money that was made in Hyperliquid is actually made by people who used the airdrop, right? So you've got that over here. You've got multiple opportunities in a very strong narrative to actually land up making proper money. Right now, I would back multiple horses in the race. Don't pick your winners yet. It's too early in the race to be picking the winners. Place bets on all of them. And again, I think that people are going to rationalize the price of Aster until we get to par with Hyperliquid. And then I think people are going to start asking many more questions. All right. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is quite big. I mean, people talking about Tether raising money at a $500 billion valuation. Can you imagine that? $500 billion. That's nearly $1 trillion, halfway to $1 trillion valuation. That's absolutely crazy. A couple of other things. Guys, if you are going to Singapore and you want to come to Token 2049, we'll be there. There are links here to get tickets if you want at a 15% discount. We don't make anything out of it. It's all just to get you guys there. If you are going to be there, let us know because we're having a banter party. Frontrunners, you've been invited to this banter party. If you're not already part of Frontrunners, sign up and you can actually come with us to our party. Lastly, so Zero G Labs launched, and I told you guys Zero G Labs would do well. And I think today it is at, let's see what the market cap of Zero G Labs. I'll be giving away, if you haven't already opened an account on Bybit or Blowfin, open an account on Bybit or Blowfin so I can actually give away this money. Trading at a $5 billion FDV. We got our tokens at like $1 billion, I think. Yeah. All right, chaps. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got a very cool show for you. So yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.